many other...
This is right, Arab.
Hello and welcome to WION Live Broadcast from Washington, D.C. I'm Nick Harper. These are the top stories this hour. The mortal remains of India's Chief of Defence, Staff General Bipin Rawat, and his wife, who died in a helicopter crash, lay draped in the Indian flag at a defence cantonment before being flown to New Delhi, where the general will be laid to rest with full military honours. According to reports, the US and Israel are to discuss possible military exercises that will prepare for a worst-case scenario to destroy Iran's nuclear facilities, should diplomacy fail. US President Joe Biden will speak to Ukraine's leader Volodymyr Zelensky shortly in a show of support after warning Vladimir Putin of sanctions like none other he's ever seen should Russian troops attack Ukraine. Baghdad says the US-led coalition against the Islamic State group has finished its combat mission in Iraq and will shift to a training and advisory role. Chinese real estate giant Evergrande is declared in default by Fitch Ratings Agency due to the debt-laden property developer's failure to pay more than $1.2 billion in bond repayments. And New Zealand announces plans to ban smoking by lifting the age at which tobacco products can be bought. This means that young teens will not be able to buy cigarettes legally. The President of the United States has commenced his ambitious Democracy Summit. It's a two-day-long virtual affair with leaders from over 100 democracies logging in for their speeches.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the first Summit for Democracy. This gathering has been on my mind for a long time for a simple reason. In the face of sustained and alarming challenges to democracy, universal human rights, and all around the world, democracy needs champions. And I wanted to host this summit because here in the United States, we know as well as anyone that renewing our democracy and strengthening our democratic institutions requires constant effort. American democracy is an ongoing struggle to live up to our highest ideals and to heal our divisions, to recommit ourselves to the founding idea of our nation, captured in our Declaration of Independence, not unlike many of your documents. We say, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all women and men are created equal, endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, among them life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Democracy doesn't happen by accident. We have to renew it with each generation, and this is an urgent matter on all our parts, in my view.
The summit has been billed as a rallying call for human rights and liberty, especially after the West's back-to-back defeats, first in Afghanistan, then with Iran over nuclear talks, and Russia over Ukraine. There's a long list of guest speakers and on-air appearances, with civil society groups, activists and journalists all taking part. The guest list also features Taiwan. Not surprisingly, the biggest outrage against the summit has come from its exclusive targets, Russia and China. The two ambassadors to Washington have even penned a joint article denouncing the event as a product of Cold War thinking. China has described how democracy and dictatorship coexists, but skips contents media freedom and judicial independence. The summit organisers have promised 3 focus points. Those are countering authoritarianism, fighting corruption and promoting respect for human rights. And the issue of technology will run through all 3 of those. Well, for more on this, we have Susan Tarani joining us live from New York. Susan, what is the objective for the United States in holding this summit, and what is President Biden trying to achieve with it?
So the objective, Nick, as you mentioned, really is the fact to showcase the benefit of democracy over authoritarianism, and if handled successfully, really, I think it'll demonstrate that there is these shared values between these countries that can prove to be very competitive and they can move forward. But I think the challenge at the end of the day will be if whether or not it could be handled poorly, and then in that case it'll sort of show the divisive nature of these 100 countries on a lot of issues, and then that'll sort of throw the ball into countries like, in the court of countries like Russia and China. Well, they'll sort of benefit from a summit like this, calling it a cliche and whatnot. But, you know, it's a gesture. It's a gesture to show that at the end of the day, more countries are on the side of democratic values and freedoms. A lot of jargons are being used, as you mentioned. And it's nonetheless a positive note to have countries come together and discuss these issues. But then you have countries being invited like Pakistan and the Philippines that have raised some eyebrows. And then countries that are sort of trying to go on the path to democracy, like El Salvador and some other countries like that, which they haven't been invited. And when Jen Psaki was asked, you know, what is the criteria of sort of being invited? Is it just not being Russia and China? She said, well, let's not get into that so much. So, you know, it is what it is. It really is a counter to China and Russia, and as you mentioned, the setbacks that the United States have mentioned. And we'll wait and see what comes out of it and what kind of, really does it have a backbone to move forward. But who can argue with not being on the side of free and fair election, human rights, and counter-terrorism and counter-corruption, right?
Thank you very much, Susan. That was Susan Tarani joining us live from New York City. Well, not everyone invited has accepted. However, Pakistan, for one, has decided to give the 2-day summit a miss. No reason has been cited by Pakistan's Foreign Office, but they have said that they would engage with the United States on a range of issues at an opportune time in the future. In a pointed snub, China and Russia have not been invited. Their ambassadors in a joint essay wrote last month that no country has the right to judge the world's vast and varied political landscape by a single yardstick. Further prickling Chinese sensibilities, the United States has invited Taiwan, the self-ruled island that China considers part of its territory. Authoritarianism is also on the rise in many democratic countries, alongside shifting attitudes about the best forms of government. Amid anti-democratic influences, a Pew report released this week noted that while people like democracy, their commitment to it is not always very strong. Sticking with the subject of authoritarianism, tensions between Russia and Ukraine continue to remain high. A day after a virtual meeting with Vladimir Putin, Joe Biden has confirmed that the US is not sending troops to Ukraine, particularly without the support of NATO allies.
That is not on the table.
U.S. President Joe Biden on Wednesday said putting American troops on the ground in Ukraine to deter a potential Russian invasion was, quote, not on the table, particularly without the support of NATO allies.
It would depend upon what the rest of the NATO countries were willing to do as well. But the idea the United States is going to unilaterally use force to confront Russia invading Ukraine is not in the cards right now. But
Biden said there would soon be high-level meetings with Russia and at least 4 major NATO allies to discuss the future of Russia's concerns about NATO and to try to bring down the temperature on Ukraine's eastern front, where tens of thousands of Russian troops have massed. The Kremlin has denied having intentions to attack Ukraine and says its troop buildup is defensive in nature. Speaking to reporters outside the White House, Biden said he made it clear to Russian President Vladimir Putin during their nearly 2-hour virtual meeting on Tuesday that there would be economic consequences like none before if Russia invades Ukraine.
I was very straightforward. There were no minced words. It was polite, but I made it very clear. If, in fact, he invades Ukraine, there will be severe consequences. Severe consequences. Economic consequences like none he's ever seen.
Biden had promised up to $60 million in military aid to Ukraine, the final elements of which will be arriving this week, Pentagon Press Secretary John Kirby said Wednesday.
Can you say what those are?
Small arms and ammunition.
Biden added that the U.S. had a moral and legal obligation to defend NATO allies if they are attacked, but that obligation did not extend to Ukraine, which is not a member of the alliance.
Smoking. In an effort to phase out smoking habits among the younger generation, New Zealand will ban the sale of tobacco. The new law will effectively impose an age limit for buying tobacco products. People aged 14 or below will not be able to buy a packet of cigarettes or any tobacco-based items. New Zealand has currently outlawed tobacco sales to minors. The age ban will increase annually by 1 year from 2027. Free goal. The level of nicotine in all cigarettes on sale will also be reduced. The new action plan is considered one of the strictest crackdowns on tobacco anywhere in the world. In 2010, Bhutan became the first country to have an outright ban on cigarette sales. In 2012, Costa Rica passed a legislation that prohibited smoking in public places. And Australia was the first country in the world to mandate plain packaging of cigarettes in 2012.
We want to make sure young people never start smoking. We are legislating for a smoke-free generation by making it an offence to sell or supply tobacco products to those aged 14 when the law comes into effect. As they age, they and future generations will never legally be able to purchase tobacco because the truth is there is no safe age to start smoking. We are also reducing the appeal and addictiveness and availability of smoked tobacco products. New laws will mean only smoked tobacco products containing very low levels of nicotine can be sold, and with a significant reduction in the number of shops that can sell them.
Next, the social media app Instagram is planning to launch a new version with a chronological feed replacing the algorithmic one. The decision comes after the head of the company was grilled about children's safety online.
Facing criticism over kids' safety on its platform, Instagram head Adam Mosseri appeared for the first time before Congress Wednesday, at times chiding with lawmakers.
Our kids aren't cash cows, and that is exactly what's been going on.
Senator, I believe parents should be able to set limits for their children because I believe a parent knows best, which is why we've developed, or why we're currently developing, parental controls that let parents not only see how much time their teens spend on Instagram, but set limits.
Mosseri called for the creation of an industry body that could set standards on how to verify age, design age-appropriate experiences, and build parental controls.
Would you support legislation to ban targeted ads towards children?
And we don't allow certain types of ads, things like weight loss ads and dating ads for those under the age of 18, or alcohol-related ads for those under the age of 21.
His appearance came as lawmakers have held a series of hearings on children's online safety, focusing on Instagram and its parent company Meta, formerly Facebook, and the potential impact their services have on the mental health, body image, and online safety of young users. It's an issue that's gained rare bipartisan support. After a Facebook whistleblower went public this year with internal documents she said showed the company knew Instagram could have harmful mental health effects on teens, but failed to act. Mosseri said public reporting mischaracterized the internal research.
Instagram is addictive.
Respectfully, I don't believe the research suggests that our products are addictive. Research actually shows that on 11 of 12 difficult issues that teens face, teens are struggling, said Instagram helps. It's my responsibility as the head of Instagram to do everything I can to help keep people safe, and we're going to continue to do so.
To that end, Mosseri also touted product changes announced Tuesday on young users' safety, including that it would be stricter about the types of content it recommends to teens. It also launched a time management feature to remind users to take a break and said it would introduce parental controls next year. But Republican Senator Marsha Blackburn called the updates too little, too late.
The Netherlands National Museum has come up with an age-defying serum equivalent for paintings to maintain the original form of historical pieces of art. Here's our report.
This is Dutch painter Rembrandt's iconic The Night Watch painting made in the year 1642. An oil-on canvas masterpiece of the Baroque and Dutch Golden Age. It is now showing signs of old age that have manifested as ripples on its top left corner. But the Rijksmuseum is now planning to stretch it out to get rid of these deformations.
The most urgent matter is the reparation of the deformations in the canvas. These are most pronounced in the upper left of the painting and were formed when it was on display in the Philips wing during the renovation of the main building of the Rijksmuseum between 2003 and 2013.
Now apparently, stretching is the equivalent of an age-defying serum for paintings. The Night Watch has undergone several such anti-aging procedures. It was placed in its current wooden stretcher in the year 1975. Now that may be contributing to some of the deformities. Such ripples may also be a result of excessive climatic fluctuations or even past restoration projects that possibly dissolved some of the varnish.
The painting will be taken off its current wooden stretcher. We strongly feel that the wooden stretcher is contributing to the problem because a wooden stretcher actually reacts differently to the canvas. It will then be put onto a new strainer, a non-reactive material that we feel will actually be much more stable for the painting than the present wooden stretcher.
The decision for the same was taken after careful scrutiny and examination of the painting. The examination also revealed that the type of pigment used in the painting is not the kind usually associated with the iconic Dutch painter. And while for the most part the painting remains in excellent condition, there were a few areas that required some work. Bureau Report WION, World is One.
The Hollywood star and climate activist Leonardo DiCaprio will soon be returning to the big screen. But this time he brings a unique gift with him, a gift which he believes will help to fight climate change.
We discovered a very large comet.
Oh, good for you. It's headed directly towards Earth. Do you know how many The World is Ending meetings we've had over the last 2 years?
A star-studded Hollywood cast, including Meryl Streep, Leonardo DiCaprio, and Jennifer Lawrence, is trying a different approach to get people to pay attention to climate change. Netflix's Don't Look Up pokes fun at the issue in hopes of spotlighting the seriousness of it all. DiCaprio, one of Hollywood's most vocal climate change activists, says he was drawn to the film because he wanted to support scientists. He's been looking to do a movie about the climate change crisis for a while, but says finding the right approach was hard until now.
I think we all looked at this as an incredibly unique gift. I think we'd all been wanting to get the message out there about the climate crisis, and Adam really cracked the code with creating this narrative.
Don't Look Up, directed and co-written by Adam McKay, takes a satirical look at how the media and politicians treat climate issues. The plot follows two lowly astronomers, played by DiCaprio and Lawrence, trying to warn a world that doesn't seem to care about a huge comet on course to destroy Earth in 6 months' time.
Can you see it?
Lawrence says the use of comedy in this case was the right approach.
Tyler Perry has a great way of saying it, that the comedy is kind of the anesthesia before the surgery, and kind of get the information across in a fun and hilarious way.
Streep says sometimes a serious topic needs a comedic touch.
It's a really important thing. But meanwhile, have some laughs, because that's what's on this roller coaster.
DiCaprio hopes the film catches the attention of those who would normally ignore climate change and spark a conversation in neighborhoods, Capitol Hill, and corporate America. And if laughter does that, then the film has done its job, says McKay.
The great thing about test screening the movie was right, left wing, we're all laughing. So I think the commonality we're going for here is like, what have we done to each other? I mean, this polarization and this nonsense, like, come on, can't we get back to basics?
Don't Look Up hits the big screen on December 10th and Netflix on the 24th.
Well, that's all we have time for in today's show. I'm in Washington, D.C. Thanks, as always, for watching.
This is right, Arab.